Rebecca Martinez had perfected the art of being invisible. At 38, she moved through life like a whisper, soft-spoken, modest, and forgettable. Her faded jeans and worn sneakers told the story of someone who counted every penny, someone who shopped at thrift stores and drove a 15-year-old Honda that wheezed up hills. Working as a part-time receptionist at Albany Animal Hospital barely covered her mother's mounting medical bills, but Rebecca never complained. Complaining was a luxury she couldn't afford. The cramped apartment she shared with her ailing mother sat in a neighborhood where sirens were the evening lullaby. Rebecca's world consisted of early morning dog walks for extra cash, 8-hour shifts answering phones, and late nights researching affordable treatment options for her mother's chronic kidney disease. Her social life was non-existent. Who had time for friends when survival demanded every waking moment? But Rebecca harbored a secret that would have shocked anyone who knew her quiet, unassuming nature. Hidden beneath her humble exterior was a gift so extraordinary that even she barely understood it. It had revealed itself by accident during a desperate summer when she was 19, working odd jobs to keep the electricity on. A friend's cousin had invited her to help clean a shooting range after hours, promising $50 cash. Rebecca had never even held a firearm, but $50 was $50. That afternoon changed everything. When the range owner convinced her to try a few practice shots, Rebecca discovered something impossible. She could shoot with surgical precision, not just well, perfectly. Every bullet found its mark as if guided by some invisible force. The men around her had muttered about beginner's luck, but shot after shot proved otherwise. Rebecca possessed an intuitive understanding of trajectory, wind, and timing that couldn't be taught. For nearly 2 decades, she'd practiced in secret whenever finances allowed, always careful to avoid attention. The skill brought her peace. In a chaotic world, a meditation where nothing existed except her breath, the target, and the perfect moment of release. But life's demands had pushed those peaceful moments further apart. Her mother's recent diagnosis had made every dollar precious, every minute accounted for. Now, standing outside the Hudson Valley shooting complex on a crisp October evening, Rebecca felt the familiar mix of excitement and guilt. She'd splurged on range time using money that should have gone toward groceries, but she desperately needed this escape. The stress of watching her mother deteriorate was suffocating her, and she craved the clarity that only came when she held a rifle. The complex buzzed with activity, seasoned marksmen discussing gear, instructors leading safety briefings, and groups of friends challenging each other to friendly competitions. Rebecca paid her fee to a bored clerk who barely glanced up from his phone, then shouldered her worn range bag containing a second-hand Glock and an aging rifle she'd bought years ago from a pawn shop. As she stepped onto the firing line, Rebecca immediately felt the weight of judgmental eyes. To her right, a cluster of men wearing matching elite tactical academy shirts paused their conversation to stare. Their leader, a muscular man with perfectly groomed facial hair and an air of supreme confidence, looked her up and down with barely concealed amusement. "First time?" he asked, with a condescending smile that didn't reach his eyes. Rebecca shook her head politely, focusing on setting up her target. She'd learned long ago that engaging with men like this only invited more unwanted attention. But the man, his shirt identified him as Ryan Carter, lead instructor, wasn't easily dismissed. "Never seen you here before," Carter pressed, his voice carrying across the bay. "This isn't exactly a beginner-friendly place. Might want to start somewhere easier." His buddies chuckled, their laughter sharp and exclusive. Rebecca's cheeks burned, but she said nothing. She'd faced worse than bruised egos and toxic masculinity. Poverty had taught her that dignity came from within, not from the approval of strangers. As she loaded her rifle with practiced efficiency, Rebecca caught fragments of whispered conversation. What's she even doing here? And probably saw it in a movie. The dismissive tone was nothing new. She'd been underestimated her entire life because of her appearance, her address, her second-hand clothes. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something inside Rebecca stirred. A quiet rebellion against every person who'd ever looked through her like she didn't matter. She adjusted her scope, controlled her breathing, and did what she'd been doing. In secret for nearly 20 years, she made every shot count. The first warning shot. The first bullet punched through the center of the target with surgical precision. Rebecca's breathing remained steady as she worked the bolt, chambered another round, and fired again. Another perfect center hit. By the fifth shot, she'd effectively created one ragged hole in the bullseye, her grouping tighter than anything the range had seen that evening. The elite Tactical Academy crew had gone silent. Ryan Carter stepped closer, squinting downrange at Rebecca's target through his binoculars. His expression shifted from amusement to confusion to something that looked like irritation. Rebecca could feel his eyes boring into her as she calmly reloaded, her movements economical and practiced. "Lucky streak," Carter announced loudly, though his voice carried a new edge. "Let's see how long that lasts." Rebecca ignored him, but she noticed other shooters had begun to pay attention. An elderly man with kind eyes and a weathered face nodded approvingly in her direction. A father, teaching his teenage son proper stance, glanced over with genuine interest. Even the range safety officer, a grizzled veteran who'd seen everything, paused to observe her technique. The attention made Rebecca's skin crawl. She'd come here for peace, not performance. But Carter's increasingly aggressive commentary was making quiet practice impossible. "Anyone can hit paper when there's no pressure," Carter said, his voice carrying clearly over the range's ambient noise. "Real shooting requires speed, movement, stress, not just sitting there like it's some kind of meditation." Rebecca finished her second magazine, every shot finding the exact same spot. The growing crowd of onlookers murmured among themselves, pointing at her target with expressions of disbelief. She'd hoped to finish her session quickly and escape, but Carter's ego seemed determined to turn this into a confrontation. As she packed her rifle case, Carter approached again, this time flanked by two of his students. "Seriously, though," he said, his tone now openly challenging, "where'd you learn to shoot like that? Military? Police? Professional training?" "Self-taught," Rebecca replied quietly, wishing she could simply disappear. Carter laughed, a harsh sound that carried across the range. "Self-taught? Right. And I'm the Pope." His cronies snickered, on cue. "Look, lady, I've been teaching tactical shooting for 12 years. I train cops, military, civilians who want real skills. What you just did, that's not self-taught. That's professional-level marksmanship." Rebecca felt heat rising in her cheeks. The implication was clear. Either she was lying about her background, or she didn't belong here. "I just practice when I can afford it," she said, softly. "Practice? Where? With who? Because what I just watched doesn't happen by accident." Carter's voice grew louder, drawing more attention. "Maybe you should consider taking some real classes. Learn proper technique instead of whatever amateur habits you've picked up." The condescension in his tone finally sparked something in Rebecca's chest, a flame she'd kept carefully banked for years. She looked up, meeting Carter's eyes directly for the first time. "I appreciate the advice," she said, her voice steady but carrying a new undertone of steel. "But I think I'm doing fine." Carter's smile turned predatory. "Fine for recreational shooting, maybe. But fine doesn't cut it in real scenarios. Fine gets people killed." He gestured toward his tactical setup, multiple targets arranged in a complex course of fire. "Tell you what, since you're so confident, why don't we make this interesting? Quick little demonstration. Let's see how that perfect grouping holds up when the timer's running." The challenge hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Rebecca's first instinct was to decline, pack up, and leave. But something about Carter's smug certainty, his absolute conviction that he could embarrass her, triggered a response she hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was thinking about her mother's medical bills. Maybe it was remembering every time someone had dismissed her because of her appearance or circumstances. Maybe it was simply that she was tired of hiding. "What kind of demonstration?" she heard herself asking. Carter's grin widened. "Simple time drill. 10 rounds, standard silhouette target, 15 yards. Shot timer runs, we see who's faster. And more accurate," he shrugged as if it were trivial. "Unless you're not comfortable with a little pressure." Rebecca glanced around the range. Every eye was on them now. The father and son had stopped their lesson to watch. The elderly gentleman had set down his rifle. Even shooters from neighboring bays had drifted over. There was no graceful way to back down without confirming every assumption Carter had made about her. "All right," she said quietly. "But just one drill, then I'm done." Carter's triumphant expression suggested he'd already won. "Perfect. Let's see what you've really got." As Rebecca returned to the firing line, her hands remained steady, but her mind raced. She'd just agreed to a very public shooting contest with a professional instructor in front of an audience. Every instinct screamed that this was a mistake. But beneath the anxiety, something else stirred, a quiet confidence built on 20 years of secret practice and natural ability that even she didn't fully understand. The range fell silent as both competitors prepared. Rebecca caught a glimpse of someone new, a tall, composed man with military bearing who'd been observing from the back. His presence added another layer of pressure to an already tense situation. Carter raised his pistol, ready to show this presumptuous amateur how real shooting was done. He had no idea that he was about to become the target himself. The breaking point. The shot timer's electronic beep shattered the silence. Carter moved. First, his technique polished and aggressive, the kind of tactical shooting designed to intimidate observers. His pistol barked rapidly, 10 shots in quick succession. When the smoke cleared, his target showed a respectable grouping clustered around the center mass area, with 2 shots straying into the outer rings. 11.4 seconds, the range officer announced, checking the timer. Not bad for a demonstration. Carter holstered his weapon with theatrical flair, turning to face the assembled crowd with a self-satisfied smirk. "That's how it's done under pressure," he declared. "Real speed, real accuracy, real-world application." His eyes found Rebecca's. "Your turn, Annie Oakley." Rebecca stepped to the line, her movements unhurried despite the dozens of eyes focused on her. She could hear whispered side bets from the audience, most favoring Carter by a wide margin. Her old Glock felt familiar in her hands, an extension of her will rather than a tool. She closed her eyes briefly, finding that quiet center she'd discovered years ago. The beep sounded. What happened next would be debated by witnesses for months afterward. Rebecca's pistol seemed to move with fluid inevitability, each shot placed with mechanical precision. Her technique looked effortless, no wasted motion, no visible stress, just smooth draw, aim, fire, and repeat. The 10 shots seemed to blend into one continuous sound. When she finished and stepped back, the range fell completely silent. 8.9 seconds, the range officer called out, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. Carter's confident expression faltered. He grabbed his binoculars, studying Rebecca's target with growing agitation. All 10 shots had found the center ring, clustered so tightly they formed a single ragged hole barely larger than a quarter. "Lucky," Carter muttered loud enough for others to hear. "Beginner's luck under pressure." But his voice lacked its earlier conviction. The tall man Rebecca had noticed earlier stepped forward. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked quietly. His presence commanded immediate respect. Even Carter backed up a step. The man examined both targets carefully, his expression unreadable. "Interesting," he said finally. "Very interesting." He extended a hand to Rebecca. "Luke Harrison, that was impressive shooting." Carter's face flushed red. "One drill doesn't prove anything," he snapped. "Anyone can get lucky once. Real tactical." "Shooting requires consistency across multiple scenarios." His voice grew louder, more aggressive. "Distance shooting, moving targets, multiple threat engagement. That's where you separate the pretenders from the professionals." Rebecca felt the trap closing around her. Carter's ego had been bruised, and he was doubling down rather than accepting defeat gracefully. Every attempt she made to de-escalate seemed to fuel his determination to embarrass her publicly. "I think I'll call it a night," she said diplomatically, beginning to pack her gear. "Running away?" Carter's voice cut across the range like a whip crack. "Can't handle a real challenge?" His tactical team gathered behind him, their expressions hostile. "Tell you what, if you're so confident, let's make this interesting. Real money, real stakes. Tomorrow night, complex course of fire, multiple stages. Winner takes all." The challenge was clearly designed to humiliate her. Carter had home field advantage, professional equipment, and a support team. Rebecca had a part-time job, second-hand gear, and a secret she'd guarded for 20 years. Accepting would be financial suicide if she lost, and public humiliation regardless of the outcome. "That's not necessary," she began. $500, Carter interrupted. "Unless you're afraid to put your money where your mouth is." $500. The amount hit Rebecca like a physical blow. That was more than she made in 2 weeks, money that could cover her mother's medications for a month. But losing it would be catastrophic. They'd have to choose between rent and treatment. Luke Harrison stepped closer, his voice low but clear. "That's quite a gamble for someone so sure of the outcome," he said to Carter. "Unless you're not as confident as you're pretending." Carter's eyes narrowed. "I'm confident enough. Question is whether our new friend here has the nerve to back up that lucky shooting." Rebecca felt the weight of every gaze on the range. Her mother's face flashed through her mind, pale, tired, trusting her daughter to find a way through their impossible situation. $500 could buy time, hope, a chance for proper treatment, but losing it would destroy everything. "Make it 1,000, she heard herself saying. "Winner takes all." The words shocked even her. $1,000 was more money than she'd ever bet on anything, more than she had in her savings account. But something in Carter's smug certainty, his absolute conviction that he could crush this nobody in front of his peers, had awakened something dangerous in Rebecca's chest. Carter's eyes gleamed. "You're on. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. We'll see what you're really made of." As the crowd dispersed and equipment was packed away, Rebecca stood alone at her shooting station, hands trembling as the magnitude of her decision sank in. She'd just wagered money she didn't have against a professional instructor with years of tactical training and home field advantage. Luke Harrison appeared beside her, his expression thoughtful. "That was either very brave or very foolish," he said quietly. Rebecca managed a shaky laugh. "Probably both." "For what it's worth," Luke said, "I've seen a lot of shooters in my time. Military, law enforcement, competition circuit. What you did tonight, that wasn't luck." As she drove home through Albany's dark streets, Rebecca's mind raced with doubts and desperate calculations. She'd committed to a contest that could either solve her immediate financial crisis or destroy what little stability she'd managed to build. Tomorrow night would determine whether her secret gift was enough to overcome professional training, superior equipment, and the crushing weight of expectations. The humble receptionist, who preferred invisibility, had just painted the biggest target on her back possible, and there was no backing down now. Gathering intelligence. Rebecca barely slept that night. She lay in her narrow bed, listening to her mother's labored breathing through the thin walls, calculating and recalculating their finances. $1,000 could cover 3 months of medication, catch up on overdue bills, maybe even afford the specialist consultation her mother's doctor had recommended. But losing it would force impossible choices: food or medicine, rent or treatment. At dawn, she made a decision that surprised even her. Instead of her usual dog-walking rounds, Rebecca drove to the public library and spent 2 hours researching Ryan Carter and his elite tactical academy. What she found both impressed and worried her. Carter wasn't just a local instructor. He was a former police officer with advanced tactical training, competition shooting awards, and glowing testimonials from law enforcement agencies across the state. His academy's website featured photos of elaborate training courses, high-end equipment, and classes that cost more than Rebecca made in a month. Carter had every advantage: professional credentials, superior gear, and a facility designed to showcase tactical shooting skills. Rebecca had natural talent and 20 years of secret practice with second-hand equipment. At the animal hospital, Rebecca's distraction was obvious. Dr. Patricia Wells, the clinic's owner, noticed her fumbling with appointment scheduling and dropping files. "Everything all right, Rebecca?" Dr. Wells asked, during a quiet moment between patients. "You seem rattled." Rebecca hesitated. Dr. Wells had always been kind, but explaining last night's events would sound insane. A part-time receptionist challenging a professional instructor to a high-stakes shooting contest? It was the plot of an absurd movie, not real life. "Just worried about my mother," Rebecca said finally. It wasn't entirely a lie, Dr. Wells nodded sympathetically. "The new treatment options we discussed?" "Expensive," Rebecca admitted. "I'm exploring additional income opportunities." That afternoon, Rebecca made another decision that would have seemed impossible 24 hours earlier. She called Luke Harrison using the business card he'd given her at the range. "Rebecca," Luke's voice carried genuine warmth. "How are you feeling about tonight?" "Terrified," she admitted. "I may have made a huge mistake." Luke was quiet for a moment. "Want some advice? Meet me at the range in an hour. Let me show you a few things that might help." The Hudson Valley shooting complex felt different in daylight, less intimidating, more clinical. Luke was waiting at the entrance, carrying a large equipment bag and wearing the same calm expression she remembered from the night before. "First rule of competition shooting," Luke said as they walked toward the firing line. "Know your opponents, strengths and weaknesses. Carter's strength is technical proficiency under pressure. His weakness is ego. He fights angry when things don't go his way." For the next 2 hours, Luke put Rebecca through drills she'd never attempted: shooting from behind cover, engaging multiple targets in sequence, reload techniques under time pressure. Her natural talent was evident, but Luke's experience showed her how to channel it more effectively. "Your accuracy is already better than 90% of shooters I've seen," Luke observed. "But Carter will try to rattle you with complexity and time pressure. The key is staying calm when everything feels chaotic." As they practiced, Luke shared details about his own background. He was indeed former military, Navy Special Operations, with combat experience and advanced marksmanship training. More importantly, he'd observed Carter's teaching methods and personality for months. "He's skilled," Luke said honestly, "but he's also predictable. Carter will design tonight's course to favor tactical movement and rapid target engagement, his specialties. He'll want to make you look amateurish by comparison." Rebecca absorbed every lesson, every tactical tip, every psychological insight Luke offered. But beneath the training, anxiety gnawed at her. She was about to face a professional instructor on his home turf, with an audience and $1,000 she couldn't afford to lose. As evening approached, they packed up their gear. Luke studied Rebecca's expression, seeing the doubt creeping back in. "One more thing," he said quietly. "Carter's going to try to psych you out before the contest even starts. Trash talk, intimidation, anything to get in your head. Don't engage. Let your shooting do the talking." Rebecca nodded, but her stomach churned with nervous energy. Tonight would determine whether her secret gift could survive public scrutiny and professional competition. Everything she'd built, her quiet life, her financial stability, her mother's care, hung in the balance. As she drove home to prepare for the evening, Rebecca caught sight of herself in the rear-view mirror. The unassuming woman who'd avoided attention her entire life was about to step into the brightest spotlight possible. Win or lose after tonight, she could never go back to being invisible. The question was whether invisibility had been protecting her or holding her back. The gauntlet. Thrown by 7:30 p.m., the Hudson Valley Shooting Complex buzzed with anticipation. Word of the contest had spread through social media and local shooting forums, drawing a crowd that far exceeded a typical evening's attendance. Rebecca arrived to find the parking lot packed with vehicles bearing bumper stickers from tactical training schools, veterans organizations, and competitive shooting clubs. Carter had transformed the range into an arena. Professional lighting illuminated multiple shooting stations, each configured with different challenges, barricaded positions, moving targets, steel plates at varying distances. A digital timer display was visible from spectator areas, and someone had even set up a small PA system for announcements. Rebecca felt her stomach drop. This wasn't the simple contest she'd envisioned. Carter had orchestrated a full-scale production designed to showcase his skills while exposing her limitations. The crowd numbered at least 50 people, many carrying cameras and recording equipment. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carter's voice boomed through the speakers as Rebecca approached the registration table. "Tonight we have a very special demonstration. A local amateur has challenged professional tactical instruction to prove that natural talent beats professional training." His tone dripped with condescension. "We're about to find out if that's true." Carter stood at the center of the crowd, resplendent in full tactical gear, custom holster, magazine pouches, professional-grade rifle with advanced optics. His support team had set up a table displaying equipment and academy promotional materials. This wasn't just a shooting contest. It was a marketing event designed to humiliate Rebecca while promoting Carter's business. Luke appeared at Rebecca's elbow, his expression grim. "He's really going all out," he observed quietly. "This is more elaborate than I expected." Rebecca studied the course layout with growing dread. 5 distinct stations required different skills: long-range precision shooting, close-quarters pistol work, moving target engagement, low-light scenarios, and a final stage combining all elements under severe time pressure. Each station was designed to highlight tactical applications rather than pure marksmanship. "Having second thoughts?" Carter called out, his voice amplified by the PA system. "Still time to back out gracefully. No shame in recognizing your limitations." The crowd murmured, some supportive, others skeptical. Rebecca caught fragments of conversation. "She's got guts, and this is going to be ugly." And "Carter's really laying it on thick tonight." Rebecca approached the equipment table where Carter waited with a contract outlining the contest rules. The document was surprisingly detailed: liability waivers, score calculation methods, dispute resolution procedures. Carter had clearly done this before. $1,000, winner takes all, Carter said loudly enough for nearby spectators to hear. "Hope you brought cash?" Rebecca signed the contract with hands that only trembled slightly, then produced 10 crisp $100 bills, her entire savings account plus money borrowed from next month's rent. Carter made a show of matching her wager, his bills looking fresh from the bank. "Since this is my facility," Carter announced, "I've designed tonight's course to reflect real-world tactical applications. This isn't a paper-punching contest, it's a demonstration of combat-applicable shooting skills." His eyes found Rebecca's. "Hope you're ready for something more challenging than stationary targets." The first station required engaging steel, targets at 200 yards with a rifle. Carter went first, his movements crisp and professional. His shots rang the steel with satisfying authority, though Rebecca noticed 2 misses that would cost him penalty points. Still, his time was impressive, professional-level performance that drew appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Rebecca stepped to the line with her aging rifle, acutely aware of its scratched stock and worn finish compared to Carter's custom equipment. She found her shooting position, controlled her breathing, and did what she'd been doing for 20 years. Trusted her instincts. Her first shot rang steel immediately. The second, third, and fourth followed in quick succession. When she finished, every target had been hit, her time a full 3 seconds faster than Carter's, despite using inferior equipment. The crowd's reaction was noticeably different this time: surprise, appreciation, scattered applause. Carter's confident expression flickered, though he quickly recovered. "Not bad for the warm-up," he said into his wireless microphone. "Let's see how that translates to real pressure." Station 2 tested close-quarters pistol skills, multiple targets at varying distances that had to be engaged in specific sequence while moving between barricades. Carter's tactical training showed clearly here. His movement was textbook perfect, his target transitions smooth and efficient. Rebecca studied the course layout, absorbing the flow and timing. When her turn came, she moved with the fluid economy that Luke had helped her develop that afternoon. Her shots were methodical rather than rushed, each one placed precisely where it needed to go. When the scores were announced, Rebecca had gained ground, her accuracy compensating for slightly slower movement. Carter's lead had shrunk to mere points. By Station 3, the crowd had grown noticeably quieter. What had begun as entertainment, watching a professional demolish an amateur, was becoming something unexpected. Rebecca wasn't just competing, she was winning. Carter's demeanor shifted accordingly. His earlier showmanship gave way to focused intensity. His trash talk became sharper, more pointed. "Beginner's luck only lasts so long," he muttered during equipment transitions. Real shooting separates the pretenders from the professionals. But as they moved through each station, Rebecca's secret weapon became increasingly apparent, while Carter relied on memorized techniques and practiced movements. Rebecca possessed something that couldn't be taught, an intuitive understanding of bullet placement that bordered on supernatural. At Station 4, involving low-light shooting with tactical flashlights, Rebecca's advantage became undeniable. In conditions that challenged even experienced shooters, she performed with the same methodical precision she'd shown all evening. The crowd had gone completely silent now, watching something unprecedented unfold. The humble woman with second-hand equipment was dismantling a professional instructor's reputation shot by shot. Carter's face had gone from confident to concerned, to something approaching desperation. His final chance lay in Station 5, a complex scenario combining all elements under severe time pressure. If he could rattle Rebecca here, force a mistake under ultimate stress, he might still salvage victory from the jaws of humiliation. "Final station," Carter announced, his voice tight with forced enthusiasm. "This is where we separate the real shooters from the paper punchers. Hope you're ready for some actual pressure." But Rebecca was beyond pressure now. She'd found that quiet center, where nothing existed except her breath, her heartbeat, and the perfect moment when bullet met target. Carter had designed this contest to expose her limitations. Instead, he was about to discover that some gifts couldn't be contained. The trap springs. The final station looked like something from a military training facility. Targets at multiple distances required specific engagement sequences with mandatory reloads, position changes, and time penalties for any missed shots. A large digital clock counted down from 90 seconds. Time pressure designed to force mistakes under stress. Carter addressed the crowd one final time before beginning his run. "This final stage separates recreational shooters from tactical professionals," he announced. "Combat-applicable skills under realistic time constraints. This is what real shooting looks like." His performance was impressive: smooth transitions, rapid target acquisition, professional reloading techniques. But Rebecca noticed something that others missed. Carter was shooting faster than necessary, trying to build an insurmountable time advantage. His accuracy suffered accordingly. 3 misses on distant targets would cost him precious penalty points. When the buzzer sounded, ending Carter's run, his final score flashed on the display: 78.3 seconds with 9 penalty points added for missed shots, a total score of 87.3. "Beat that," Carter said, breathing hard from the exertion. His confident smile looked forced now, but he still believed his technical superiority would prevail. Rebecca approached the starting position as the crowd pressed closer. Luke gave her an encouraging nod from the sidelines. Dr. Wells had arrived during the later stages, watching with concerned eyes. Even her mother's nurse had come, having heard about the contest through the hospital staff network. The digital timer reset to 90 seconds. Rebecca took her position, rifle ready, breathing controlled. Everything she'd learned that afternoon. With Luke, every instinct developed over 20 years of secret practice coalesced into perfect focus. The buzzer sounded. What happened next would be replayed on smartphone videos and described in shooting forums for months afterward. Rebecca moved through the course like water flowing downhill, inevitable, efficient, unstoppable. Each shot seemed preordained, every movement economical and precise. She engaged the long-distance targets first, her aging rifle cracking steadily as steel plates rang in quick succession. Her transition to pistol work was seamless, muscle memory taking over as she navigated between barricades. Close-range targets fell in perfect sequence, her shooting rhythm never faltering. The crowd had gone completely silent, except for the mechanical sounds of her reloading and the distinctive ring of bullet-striking steel. Even Carter had stopped his commentary, watching with growing disbelief as Rebecca dismantled his carefully designed course. With 15 seconds remaining on the clock, Rebecca engaged the final target array, 5 steel plates at varying distances that had to be cleared in under 10 seconds to avoid massive time penalties. Her rifle barked 5 times in rapid succession. 5 hits. Clean sweep. The final buzzer sounded. The display showed Rebecca's time, 73.8 seconds, 0 penalty points, perfect run. For a moment, the range was completely silent. Then Luke started clapping, slowly and deliberately. Dr. Wells joined him, then the nurse, then scattered members of the crowd. The applause built until it filled the night air, punctuated by whistles and shouts of appreciation. Rebecca stood at the firing line, rifle lowered, hardly believing what had just happened. She'd not only won, she'd dominated. Every shot perfect, every movement efficient, every target engaged with surgical precision. Carter's face had gone through several color changes, settling on an unhealthy shade of red. His $1,000 bet, his professional reputation, his carefully orchestrated demonstration, all had crumbled before the crowd he'd assembled to witness Rebecca's humiliation. "Lucky shooting," Carter muttered into his microphone, but his voice lacked conviction. "Equipment malfunction on my end. These things happen in real-world scenarios." Luke stepped forward, his expression stern. "I witnessed the entire event," he said clearly. "Both competitors used the same targets, same conditions, same time limits. No equipment malfunctions observed." The range officer, who'd been timing both runs, approached with the official scorecards. "Winner by a margin of 13.5 seconds, he announced. "Perfect accuracy score for the challenge winner." Carter's supporters had grown noticeably quiet. His tactical team looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. The marketing event designed to showcase professional training had instead revealed its limitations when faced with pure, natural talent. "Payment as agreed," Luke said firmly, gesturing toward the wager money held by the range officer acting as stakeholder. Carter's hand hesitated over the cash. For a moment, Rebecca thought he might refuse payment, claim some technicality or equipment failure. But too many witnesses had recorded the entire event. His reputation depended on honoring the bet gracefully. "Well shot," Carter said finally, his voice barely audible. He handed over the $1,000 with obvious reluctance. "Lucky night for you." Rebecca accepted the money with hands that barely trembled. $2,000, more than she'd ever held at once. Her mother's medications for 6 months, caught-up bills, time to breathe. But as the crowd dispersed and equipment was packed away, Rebecca realized something had fundamentally changed. Her secret was out. The invisible woman who'd avoided attention her entire life was now the subject of dozens of smartphone videos and social media posts. Dr. Wells approached as Rebecca packed her gear. "I had no idea," she said softly. "That was extraordinary." "Thank you for coming," Rebecca replied, still processing the evening's events. "About your mother's treatment," Dr. Wells continued. "I may have some resources that could help. Let's talk Monday." As Rebecca drove home through Albany's quiet streets, her mind struggled to process what had happened. She'd won more than money. Tonight, she'd proven something to herself about courage, about hidden potential, about the power of quiet determination. But victory carried its own challenges. Her phone had been buzzing with calls from unknown numbers. Social media notifications were piling up. The woman who'd spent 38 years avoiding attention had just become the center of it. Tomorrow would bring new complications, new opportunities, and new questions about who Rebecca Martinez really was beneath her humble exterior. Tonight had shattered more than targets. It had broken open a carefully constructed life and revealed possibilities she'd never dared to imagine. The unassuming receptionist was about to discover that sometimes the greatest challenge isn't winning, it's deciding what to do with victory. The reckoning. Rebecca woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, she found 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and over 100 notifications from social media platforms she rarely used. Someone had uploaded video of the contest to YouTube with the title "Unknown Woman Destroys Tactical Instructor in Epic Shooting Showdown." It already had 50,000 views. Her mother called from the bedroom, voice weak but curious. "Rebecca, there are people outside." Rebecca peered through the blinds to see a small crowd gathered across the street. Some held cameras, others notebooks. A news van from Channel 10 had parked at the corner. Her quiet life of anonymity had evaporated overnight. Her phone rang again, this time a number she recognized. Dr. Wells. "Rebecca, are you all right? I've been getting calls about you all morning." "Calls? Reporters. They want to know about your background, your training, where you learned to shoot like that." Dr. Wells paused. "I told them you're a valued employee who deserves privacy, but this is bigger than I expected." Rebecca's doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw a woman in a business suit holding a microphone, flanked by a cameraman. "I can't deal with this," Rebecca whispered into the phone. "Come in through the back entrance today," Dr. Wells suggested. "We'll figure something out." But escape proved impossible. Rebecca's story had captured something the public craved, an underdog triumph that felt authentic in an age of manufactured drama. Local news stations picked up the story, then regional networks. By noon, Humble Receptionist Humble's tactical expert was trending on social media. At the animal hospital, Rebecca tried to maintain normalcy, but clients kept recognizing her voice from news clips. The waiting room buzzed with whispered conversations and pointed glances. Dr. Wells finally pulled her aside during lunch. "I've had 3 calls from shooting sports companies," Dr. Wells said quietly. "They want to sponsor you, and—" she hesitated. "The hospital board wants to meet with you tomorrow. They're concerned about publicity affecting our professional."
"Image!" Rebecca's stomach dropped. "Are they firing me?" "Not necessarily."
"But they want to discuss your outside activities and their impact on the clinic's reputation." Dr. Wells looked genuinely sympathetic. "I'm fighting for you, but I wanted you to know." The afternoon brought more complications. Luke called with news that Carter was claiming the contest had been rigged, that Rebecca had received advanced knowledge of the course layout. While no one with half a brain believed it, the accusations were spreading on tactical training forums and social media. "He's desperate," Luke explained. "His reputation took a massive hit. Students are cancelling classes, asking for refunds. He's trying to salvage what he can by attacking your credibility." Can he do that legally? Probably not successfully, but he can make noise. The good news is I have complete video documentation of the event, including his course explanation and setup, plus about 30 witnesses. That evening, Rebecca found herself facing an impossible choice. 3 different shooting sports companies had made formal sponsorship offers. Substantial. Money in exchange for appearances, endorsements, and competition participation. The largest offer, from a major ammunition manufacturer, included a signing bonus that would cover her mother's treatment for 2 years. But accepting meant abandoning the quiet life she'd built. It meant becoming a public figure, traveling to events, living under constant scrutiny. Everything her introverted nature rejected. Her mother, despite her illness, proved surprisingly insightful. "You've been hiding your gift for 20 years, she said weakly from her bed. "Maybe it's time to stop hiding." "I don't want to be famous, Mom. I just want to take care of you and live quietly." Sometimes life has bigger plans for us than we have for ourselves. Her mother squeezed Rebecca's hand. That money could help a lot of people beyond just us. Think about other families struggling with medical bills, other women who think they can't compete in men's sports. Rebecca spent the night researching the companies that had approached her. One stood out, a smaller firm that sponsored competitive shooters while supporting veterans programs and youth training initiatives. Their offer was modest compared to the others, but their values aligned with something deeper than money. The next morning brought the dreaded meeting with the hospital board. 5 stern-faced administrators sat around a conference table, with Dr. Wells present as Rebecca's advocate. "Ms. Martinez," the board chairman began formally, "we've become aware of your recent activities. While we respect your personal interests, we're concerned about the hospital's reputation being associated with firearms and violence." Rebecca felt anger flare, the same emotion that had driven her to accept Carter's challenge. "With respect, sir, competitive shooting is a legal sport, practiced by millions of Americans. I haven't done anything illegal, unethical, or unprofessional." "Nevertheless," another board member interjected, "your sudden notoriety creates complications. We've had protesters outside this morning, anti-gun activists demanding we take a stance." Dr. Wells leaned forward. "Rebecca has been an exemplary employee for 4 years. Her performance reviews are spotless, her dedication to our patients absolute. Punishing her for illegal activity outside of work would be discriminatory." The meeting continued for 30 tense minutes. Finally, the board reached a decision. Rebecca could remain employed, but any future publicity related to shooting sports would result in immediate termination. She was effectively banned from accepting sponsorships or participating in competitions while working at the hospital. Rebecca left the meeting feeling crushed. The choice had been made for her: quiet anonymity or financial opportunity, but not both. That afternoon, Luke found her sitting alone at the shooting range, staring at an untouched target. "Heard about the hospital," he said, settling beside her on the bench. "That's rough." "I feel like I'm being punished for being good at something," Rebecca said bitterly. 20 years I kept this secret, and the moment it comes out, everything falls apart." Luke was quiet for a moment. "You know, I've been thinking about your situation. There might be another option." He explained his idea, a private shooting academy focused on defensive training for everyday people, especially women concerned about personal safety. Rebecca's story, her journey from invisible receptionist to champion marksman, embodied exactly the empowerment message that would resonate with their target audience. "You'd be the head instructor," Luke continued. "We split ownership 50-50. Your technical skills, my business connections and tactical knowledge. We focus on real-world applications, not ego-driven competition." Rebecca stared at him. "You're talking about starting a business. I know nothing about running a company." "I know people who do. What you have is something that can't be taught. Natural ability combined with genuine humility. People trust you because you're real, not because you're trying to impress them." As Luke outlined his vision, Rebecca felt something she hadn't experienced in years: excitement about the future. Not just survival, not just getting by, but actually building something meaningful. "Think about it," Luke said as they parted ways. "You've already proven you can compete with the best. Now you can decide what you want to do with that gift." The new target. 6 months later, Rebecca stood in the doorway of Precision and Purpose Training Academy, watching her latest student, a nervous accountant named Jennifer, successfully hit a target at 25 yards for the first time. The woman's face lit up with the same mixture of disbelief and pride that Rebecca remembered feeling 20 years ago. "I did it!" Jennifer exclaimed, lowering her pistol with shaking hands. "I actually hit the center." Rebecca smiled, remembering when hitting targets seemed impossible rather than inevitable. "That's the feeling you're chasing," she said. "Not perfection, just progress." The academy occupied a converted warehouse outside Albany with 6 indoor shooting lanes, a classroom for safety instruction, and a small office where Rebecca handled the business side of operations. Luke had been right about her instincts. She possessed not just technical skill but the ability to teach others to find their own quiet confidence. Their client base had grown steadily through word-of-mouth referrals. Women comprised 60% of their students, drawn by Rebecca's story and teaching approach. Unlike the intimidating tactical academies that dominated the market, precision and purpose focused on practical skills for everyday people. "Same time next week?" Jennifer asked, packing up her gear with newfound confidence. "Absolutely. We'll work on moving targets next session." After Jennifer left, Rebecca walked through the facility that had become her second home. The walls displayed certifications, safety awards, and photos from student achievements, not trophies or ego displays, but genuine celebrations of personal growth. Luke emerged from the office, holding a thick envelope. "Quarterly reports," he announced. "We're officially profitable." Rebecca shook her head in amazement. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real." "Believe it. You've built something special here." The Academy's success had brought unexpected opportunities. Rebecca now consulted with law enforcement agencies on defensive shooting techniques, appeared as an expert commentator at regional competitions, and had even been featured in a documentary about women in shooting sports. But the most satisfying moments came from students like Jennifer, people who arrived nervous and uncertain, then discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. Rebecca recognized herself in their journeys, understanding the transformative power of finding your hidden strengths. Her mother's health had stabilized thanks to the specialized treatment they could now afford. Dr. Wells had become a close friend and occasional student, having discovered her own interest in competitive shooting. Even the hospital board had quietly approached Rebecca about providing self-defense training for their nursing staff. Ryan Carter had eventually rebuilt his reputation through a humbling process of genuine skill development and attitude adjustment. He'd even referred several students to Rebecca's academy, acknowledging her expertise with grudging respect. Pride, Rebecca had learned, was often its own punishment. As evenings settled over the academy, Rebecca performed her nightly routine, securing equipment, reviewing the next day's schedule, and taking a few practice shots to maintain her edge. Her skills remained sharp, but now they served a larger purpose than personal satisfaction. Luke joined her at the firing line, his own rifle ready for practice. They'd developed an easy partnership built on mutual respect and shared vision. What had begun as a desperate gamble to pay medical bills had evolved into something neither had initially imagined. "Any regrets?" Luke asked, as they prepared for their evening practice session. Rebecca considered the question while loading her rifle, the same aged weapon that had started everything, now maintained with professional care, but never replaced. About leaving the hospital? About the publicity? About starting all this?
Any of it. All of it. She lined up her sights on a target 50 yards away, finding that familiar zone of perfect focus. "Just one," she said, squeezing the trigger with practiced precision.
The bullet found dead center, as it always did. "What's that?" Rebecca smiled, chambering another round. "I regret waiting 20 years to stop hiding." As they continued their practice in comfortable silence, Rebecca reflected on the unexpected path that had led her here. She'd spent most of her adult life invisible, believing that quiet anonymity was the safest way to navigate a challenging world. But sometimes Safety was just another form of prison. Sometimes the greatest risk was refusing to take any risks at all. Her story had become something larger than personal triumph, proof that extraordinary abilities could emerge from the most ordinary circumstances, that dignity and skill mattered more than expensive equipment or professional credentials, that quiet determination could overcome louder voices claiming superiority. The humble receptionist who had once trembled at the thought of public attention now stood confidently in her own spotlight, using her platform to lift others rather than seeking glory for herself. She discovered that true strength wasn't about being the best shooter in the room. It was about helping others find their own accuracy. As Rebecca locked up the academy and headed home to her mother, she carried with her the satisfaction of a life finally lived in full focus, no more hiding behind humble facades or allowing others to underestimate her worth. She had found her target and hit it perfectly, a purpose worth aiming for, shot by shot, student by student, one perfectly placed bullet of opportunity at a time. The woman who had once preferred invisibility now understood that some gifts were meant to be shared, some talents were meant to teach, and some quiet voices were meant to echo loudly enough for others to hear and follow. Rebecca Martinez had finally stopped apologizing for being exceptional, and in doing so, she discovered that her greatest triumph wasn't the contest she'd won, it was the life she'd built afterward. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our everyday life stories. Community, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world. Your support helps us bring you more incredible true stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Have your own inspiring story to share? We'd love to hear it in the comments.